Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the Free State Sports Podcast, the podcast for all things sports. I am Saquon, and with me are my colleagues, compadres, and constituents, Michael and Andrew. Boys, welcome to the show. How are we doing today?
Fantastic.
I'm doing pretty good and a really good job on the intro there.
Beautiful intro. One take. Love it.
Much appreciated, much appreciated. For the viewers listening, if you like what you hear today, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It is much appreciated. Before we continue any further, today is Father's Day, so anyone out there that has a father, I hope you wish them a happy Father's Day. It's much appreciated. And also, the month of June is Men's Health Awareness Month. As a man, there's a stigma going around that we are not able to share our emotions. And firsthand, I can say it feels freeing to share how we feel to someone else. So if you see something, say something. If you feel as though you're alone in the world, I firsthand could say that is not true. I have my colleagues, my friends here. They are willing to listen to anything I have to say firsthand. Without delay, we will continue today's show. We will start off with the NFL contracts. From Minnesota, we had wide receiver Justin Jefferson becoming the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history for a 4-year contract worth $140 million. Mike, what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, I love that deal. I feel like he's a key piece to that offense. I think the only option for that team is to re-sign him. I think he absolutely deserves to be the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. I think he's more than earned that contract, and I'm excited to continue to see him play there.
Andrew, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I absolutely love that deal. I mean, in his first 4 seasons, he's went over 1,000 yards in each season. Last year, he played 10 games over 1,000 yards, which averages about 100 yards per game, give or take a couple. He's been balling out, and I can't think of any other reason than make him the highest paid wide receiver in the league.
I believe he can only go up from here. His work ethic has shown that he has proven the contract he's received. So I'm glad that we can mutually agree on that. From San Francisco, running back Christian McCaffrey agrees to a 2-year extension worth $19 million per year. He also has become the cover athlete of Madden 25. It's been a while since we last seen a running back on the cover. What do you guys think about that?
First of all, I'm glad we finally got to see what they were going to do with the title for that game, since they already released a quote Madden 25 a few years back.
Lazy title.
Lazy title. But no, I think that's pretty cool. He was in the running for MVP this past year. Of course, Lamar Jackson ended up winning that. Shout out to the 2-time. But I think he definitely deserves that extension. Me and Andrew were talking off podcast about how we think he's actually severely underpaid. Andrew, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, like I said off podcast, he is underpaid. He is the 49ers offense. If anyone deserves money on the 49ers, it's Christian McCaffrey. Take away Christian McCaffrey, I don't think they're making it to the playoffs.
Right.
And that's nothing against Deebo Samuel or Brandon Aiyuk or Brock Purdy. It's to do with their play style. It's run first, get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, open field in the pass game and the run game. I'm surprised they're not giving him the ball to throw it now. Mm-hmm. He is that guy, and I'm glad he's able to be represented with this money. He's now, I believe, the highest paid running back in the league, and it isn't even close. The next closest is Alvin Kamara with $14 million a year.
Completely agree with that. Since CMC has come to San Francisco 49ers, he's definitely been a game changer with the names you mentioned, such as Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, he's definitely a key part of that offense for sure. I remember when he left Carolina, I was kind of anxious to see how he'd perform under a new system, but he's thriving over there just like he was in Carolina. So definitely a player you got to keep.
Completely agree. Speaking of Brandon Aiyuk, Andrew did bring up earlier this week what the impact of CMC's contract will have with the rest of the roster. Do we believe that Brandon Aiyuk will re-sign with the 49ers?
I do not. I think they've already washed their hands clean. They were planning to re-sign Christian McCaffrey. They drafted a first-round receiver in Ricky Pearson. It looks like they're just going to trade Brandon Aiyuk, and I understand they're showing this facade. I believe it's a facade that they want to keep Aiyuk around. But there's been no negotiations to the table reported from Aiyuk's agent or from the organization. So it looks like they're going to walk away from Brandon.
Okay. Michael, what's your thoughts on it?
I haven't done too much research on his situation. I think he's definitely, obviously, a proven player, but I think this is still a very potent offense that would be fine without him. Obviously, if he ends up going somewhere else, I'm sure he'll be very successful there. So that'll be an interesting thing to follow. But I think the 49ers would be fine with or without him, to be honest with you.
I agree. I do believe that he's one of the key factors that led San Francisco to the Super Bowl, but I also believe that they would be just fine without him. As we continue forth with people that are staying with the team, quarterback Trevor Lawrence has also agreed to a 5-year extension with the Jags, worth $275 million, with $175 million guaranteed. Mike, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a lot of money. It ties Joe Burrow for the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. I'm going to just tell you like it is right off the bat. I don't think he's worth that much money. I think if you look at his stats over the last few years, in 2021, he had 3,600 yards, 12 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. In 2022, he had a solid season, a little over 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns to 8 picks. That was the year where he kind of started to break out a little bit. I believe they broke into the playoffs that year, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
So I
think he even won a playoff game, right?
Yeah, I believe
Didn't
so.
he have that?
He did.
Yeah, he had that.
Just one.
That trash first half where he threw 3 interceptions, and then he came back in the second half and was able to stabilize and win the game.
Yeah,
which shows a lot of like gumption there.
Yeah, had a promising year in 2022, and then last year, decent on the yards category, still over 4,000, but he threw 21 touchdowns to 14 interceptions with a quarterback rating of just over 88. Those are not numbers that suggest that you're worth $275 million.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I ended up comparing his career stats with the career stats of a former Jaguars quarterback by the name of, and you guys might know him, Gardner Minshew. Mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't one to buy into the Minshew mania back when the Jaguars first started him over Blaine Gabbert, I believe.
I think so, yeah. Was it Blake Bortles?
No, it might have been Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
So many names.
It was Bortles, then Nick, Foles, then Trevor, I think, in that order.
Gardner after Nick Foles?
I think so, yeah, before
Trevor
came in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway, career stats for Trevor Lawrence is 58 touchdowns to 39 interceptions. That's a 1.48 touchdown to interception ratio, which isn't bad. It's not terrible. A 63% completion percentage. Now, for Gardner Minshew, he has a career touchdown of 59 and only 24 interceptions. I understand Minshew's played a little bit longer than Lawrence, but it shows that Minshew also turned the ball over less than Trevor Lawrence. And I think key to winning games is not turning over the football.
Yeah. And those are wild stats because you're comparing basically a journeyman to a guy that just got a $275 million contract.
Yeah. Now, that's the increasing contracts. It happens practically almost every year.
Yeah, we always see somebody in the new highest paid.
Yeah, so, and that's because salary cap is consistently changing every year. And we talked about that, I believe, in episode 1. Mm-hmm. So next year, there's going to be a different highest paid quarterback, most likely. I mean, odds are. The year after that, there's going to be another one. I don't think he deserves to be even in the conversation of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks.
No.
I think he can get there.
Yeah, yep.
But I think the Jaguars made a big mistake, and they're going to pay for it when they're not able to bring in any weapons.
That's also that's a long commitment, 5 years, and spreading that money out over 5 years might be a smart decision, but I don't know if I see him being consistent over that level of time.
I agree.
Before we continue with that, do you believe that Trevor Lawrence is the guy for the Jaguars? If not, who can you see being in that position?
I definitely believe that he could be the guy for the Jaguars. I don't think there's anybody available for them to pick up. I would have loved to see them make a move for Justin Fields. I feel like Justin Fields would have done pretty well to elevate that offense, but obviously they didn't. I can't see another active quarterback who could step into Trevor's position. So right now, Trevor is all they got. I would love to be proved wrong, but I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a long-term solution to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I don't see anybody that could fill that position right now. There's a lot of young quarterbacks that are sort of unproven that came in this past draft. We kind of talked about how there weren't too many standout players in this draft, but I'm interested to see how that'll unfold over the next couple of years and whether or not he'll survive that 5-year contract in Jacksonville, or if they'll end up trying to do something else with him or bring somebody else in. But as of right now, I don't think anybody could fill that position. So while I don't think he's worth that money, I also don't think they had a better option. And I think if they let him walk, there's a good chance he gets a bigger, the same deal somewhere else.
I do have a follow-up question. If after you weigh in, Saquon.
Oh, go ahead. You had a point?
No, I just had a follow-up question.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, would it make sense for the Jaguars to make a move for like a Brandon Aiyuk or a wide receiver in the free agency market in order to help bolster this? I really couldn't tell you who the Jaguars receivers are right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they have a standout receiver.
Out. I believe they have Calvin Ridley, right? And Travis Etienne.
Well, Etienne's a running back.
Oh, my apologies.
No,
so just
fine.
Ridley, right?
You're fine. They got Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Devin Duvernay. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a solid receiver core, but I think they could definitely stand to add some more pieces.
Yeah, I would love to see a reach for like a Brandon Aiyuk or.
Yeah, I think that would be a good move, honestly.
But with that contract, do they have enough room to make that?
You know, I'd even look into when that contract kicks in. Does it kick in immediately, or does it kick in next year?
I'm actually not sure.
I want to say next year. I'm not too sure. I didn't look into it.
Yeah, because I know looking at a contract we discussed last week, I think it was Jalen Waddles didn't kick in until next year.
Interesting. So it's fair to assume that the same thing for Trevor Lawrence then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, he's in a contract year right now. So regardless.
The Jags do have a good bit of cap space. They're looking at, according to JaguarsWire.usatoday.com, they're looking at a little over $28 million in cap space. So they could potentially bring him in if he becomes a free agent.
So Tony Khan could, do something interesting. Any more talking points about Trev before we move on?
That's all I got.
All right, cool. Last talking point for the NFL contracts. Coming from Pittsburgh, the Steelers have agreed to extend Mike Tomlin's contract for 3 years. Thoughts?
Hot
Andrew.
take. I loved it.
Interesting.
You see, I tend to make a lot of excuses for a lot of people throughout the NFL. And you'll see it if you continue to follow the podcast. Mike Tomlin has proven time and time and again that his formula at least gets him to 500. He's never had a season below 500. Oh, maybe it's because he had Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, he doesn't have him anymore. He had Kenny Pickett, right? I don't think he's going to have a great season with Russell Wilson, but I do think his defense can carry him to a 500 record.
That's fair. I would agree with that. I think he's a solid option for them. I don't really see anybody available right now that would be better. But also, at some point, you got to start winning playoff games, I feel.
I agree, but at least they were in the playoffs. I mean, compared to other coaches around the league who retain their jobs despite just missing out on the playoffs or missing the playoffs entirely, I'm excited what the Steelers can do. I'm a diehard Ravens fan. It's hard for me to say anything good about the Steelers.
Yeah.
But I have nothing but respect for Mike Tomlin tripping Jacoby Jones on the sideline. I'm sorry, that just came out.
Still holding on to that grudge. It's okay, I am too.
What he did. He knows exactly what he did. Mike, you have any opinions on it?
I mean, like I said, I don't really see a better option for them. But while I want to say that you got to win playoff games, I don't think that all comes down to the coach. NFL and football in general is obviously a team sport. But he has, one thing I will give him, he's been probably the most consistent coach in the NFL for a very long time. So I don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate it, but I wonder how much longer he'll be there if he doesn't end up making the playoffs sometime within that contract.
Before we proceed, it's fair to mention that Mike Tomlin is the third coach from the Pittsburgh Steelers organization within the past 3 decades.
Yeah, that is very fair to mention.
Yeah.
I mean, Pittsburgh has always been very great at picking coaches. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what sets them apart. Because, I mean, look how many coaches the Browns had, the Bengals had, the Lions had. I could go on all day, right? But the top organizations are the one that selects a coach and sticks with that coach for X amount of years, right?
Right.
The Ravens have only had 3, and granted, they've been in since, 1996? Mm-hmm. The Steelers have had 3 in 3 decades. The Patriots had Bill Belichick all throughout the 2000s, 2010s, and into the 2020s. It's the good organizations select good coaches. The bad organizations take a chance on a bad coach.
Moving on to our next topic is NFL contracts. Actually, NFL off seasons. Come from the New York Jets. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers skipped mandatory minicamp for an unexcused reason. Could be fined for absence. Mike, what's your thoughts on that?
I think he did get fined, if I'm not mistaken. The coach said they were in good communication with each other. Said that he called him and told him he had a quote important event that he couldn't miss. I don't know if that's something family related or what it is.
Probably Fauci related. He had to go heckle Fauci or something.
And while Rodgers is proven enough to earn that right, but also you got injured in the first series last year. The Jets really didn't do anything at all once again. I think we're witnessing the fall of Aaron Rodgers. And when you came into a team like the Jets, I feel like that's not a good look. And it gives me the feeling that he's kind of pulling out that veteran card a little bit. Which, again, I'm not going to he's done a lot in the NFL. Like, I'm not going to criticize him for it. But I think if you're the Jets, something's got to give, right? Because, you brought him in to be a leader and to try to get something out of him, try to make a better team, build around him with whatever time he's got left. I think that's not a good look for Aaron Rodgers or for the Jets, to be honest with you.
You know, Mike, you really had me there for a quick second about the fall of Aaron Rodgers, because I completely agree. Are we surprised that Aaron Rodgers didn't show up to OTAs or mandatory minicamp? Because I'm not surprised. Aaron Rodgers is always yeah, since 2020, the beginning of COVID, he came out as this whole rule bender. You know, I'm vaxxed. Well, I'm immunized. You know what I meant, right? He came out and he started bending the rules, and that he left Green Bay after he got paid big money in Green Bay, so he leaves. I'm not surprised Aaron Rodgers didn't show up. It's just, when I was looking through the news, when this was first brought up in conversation, I was just like, this shouldn't even be a topic because I'm not surprised. But no, it should have been a topic. That was wrong for me to think. Because it is the fall of Aaron Rodgers. This is the beginning of the end for a Hall of Fame quarterback, because he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He put the resume, 4-time MVP, 1-time Super Bowl winner, and Super Bowl MVP. His resume screams Hall of Fame quarterback. Now he's tarnishing his name. Is he going to make it? Probably. It's Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But I'm not surprised that he didn't show up. So why are the Jets keeping him around? They don't have any other options, obviously.
Yeah. I feel at this point they did my man Zach Wilson kind of dirty if that's the guy they're bringing in to replace him.
Yeah.
To both you guys' points, if you don't recall, the night they drafted Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers threw a whole fit and threatened pretty much the organization that he was going to leave. So this is a reoccurring thing when it comes to him. He can be a diva, and I believe the Jets organization is hoping that he can bring the entire ship together.
Man, it is. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say I agree.
It is wild that in 2024, somehow I've grown to become more of a fan of Tom Brady than I have Aaron Rodgers.
I've always been a fan of Tom Brady. Damn. I'm not a bandwagon. Screw the Patriots.
Yeah.
But you can't deny skill. Aaron Rodgers hasn't shown the ability to carry a team to a victory in such a long time. And that might be because he's injured, but also look at his last season in Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't know how much is left in the tank. I don't know what he's got going on, what the reason is he had to miss. But I don't see the Jets doing too much with him. Again, I think we're witnessing the end of an era with Aaron Rodgers.
That'd be an end of an era, period, though, wouldn't it? Like Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees.
Yep. Yep, he's the last
Matt Stafford.
Era, pretty much.
Matt Stafford's still playing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because 5 years ago, you wouldn't be able to put Matt Stafford in conversation with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But Matt Stafford has a Super Bowl ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He doesn't have the Pro Bowls. He doesn't have the MVPs. But Matt Stafford has a Super Bowl ring. as many as Aaron Rodgers has.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how things unfold like that.
Yeah, Jared Goff could
Funny
be
how the
getting a
world
ring
works.
soon too. Then he'd be more Super Bowl victories than Aaron Rodgers anyway.
Any last talking points?
That's all I got.
All right, cool. Next point. The NFL Players Association is working to finalize a proposal to overhaul the offseason starting as soon as 2025. This will eliminate any voluntary on-field work during the spring. Instead, players will opt for the longer training camps. Michael, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think having that longer ramp-up in the offseason and not having OTAs during that period before training camp is a good idea for player safety. Very conflicted on what the hell the NFL wants because they're doing this new kickoff stuff, which we're going to get into later. But they're doing that, and now they're also doing the removal of the OTAs. I feel like they're kind of contradicting themselves a little bit, but I'm all for the removal of OTAs because we see a lot of veterans that voluntarily don't show up to those, and you can't blame them. I mean, these top-tier guys, they don't want to go in there and risk getting hurt.
As we've seen.
Yeah, put more of a toll on their bodies.
Especially the
when they
Ravens
don't have to.
organization.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's no reason. And as an example, we're all Ravens fans here, full transparency. But we see people criticize Lamar Jackson a lot for missing OTAs. He's in Florida working with his personal quarterback coach, and he's also down there with a couple of Ravens receivers. So there are plenty of other ways for quarterbacks and whatever other players to get that work in the offseason without having to show up for OTAs. So I'm all for that removal if it increases player safety and player health.
Yeah, no, I'm honestly right there with you. My major thing is the wording they chose to use, and I'm a very technical guy. It used to be my job back in the day. But they're extending training camp, which is mandatory, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
But they're removing OTAs, which is voluntary. I would prefer them to keep more voluntary things out there because it shows who the people want to come in and actually earn their position, right? OTAs are really to see how people's work ethic is going. And you don't need to know the work ethic of your established quarterback, your established receiving core. You need to know the work ethic of that new rookie you just drafted.
Right, which is what you could also do in rookie minicamp.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a need for OTAs, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. OTAs have never really been important into recent history that I can remember. I mean, no one really brings up OTAs unless they want to say that somebody's bad really early on. So I'm conflicted, but at the same time, it sounds like they're just changing the names of OTAs.
Yeah.
That's honestly what it sounds like. They're making it mandatory. That's what it sounds like.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So for your points in recent history, the OTAs have gained some type of symbolism and of importance. It seems as though if one athlete misses it, all hell breaks loose. With that's not the only change that's been going on in the offseason. As of next season, the NFL will operate under a new kickoff format, adopting a system that was first seen in the XFL. Andrew, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so this news released like 3-4 months ago, and it did not make me happy. It really changed how much a kicker can do because, I mean, when you get a kicker like Justin Tucker, who used to drive the ball out of the back of the end zone, that can't happen anymore, right? Because it brings the ball out to the 35-yard line now. I believe that's the new
kick
kickoff
zone
rules. Yeah, so
there's a kick zone forward.
Yeah, if you drive the ball out of the back of the end zone, it brings the ball up further than it used to. The rules are just so... They claim they want player safety, but the safest thing on a kickoff return is when the ball gets driven out of the back. And I understand they want the excitement that the XFL brings, but there's a reason why the XFL is smaller than the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't like the rule.
Yeah, I think for excitement, obviously it would be a good thing, but for player safety, which they seem to preach a lot, I think that's invoking quite the opposite effect.
Yeah.
And they've talked about having guys potentially taking kickers out of that play and putting somebody like a linebacker or something like that in there just because they might need some extra muscle back there, things like that. So there's basically a whole new system they're putting into place. And Justin Tucker kind of joked that he's been hitting the weight room because because he might be more involved if they're implementing those rules, and that's dangerous not only for the kickers, but obviously for the returners as well. So I'm not a big fan of it. I was fine with the way kickoffs were before. I didn't think it needed to be changed. Obviously, that's a business decision to bring more excitement to the game, but I don't know. I'm not really a fan of it. I'm kind of with you, Andy.
Yeah, it's really changing a lot. I mean, if you think about it, it's the end of the squib kick. You can no longer squib kick the football because it has to travel past the 40-yard line. If it lands before the 40, isn't that's a penalty now, and the ball gets brought out to the 45. The ball's not allowed to land into the end zone. It has to land between the 35-yard line and I think the goal line. I'm not a big fan of it. I would have hoped that the NFL would have implemented this as a preseason test rule, or maybe even elevated to a postseason test rule. Like they kind of did with the overtime rules, and see how it feels in game, because in game always looks different than on paper. But I feel like they're putting way too much restrictions on the kick team to allow for greater returns for the returning team, which impacts how the game is played and impacts a lot. It's going to change the strategy of special teams.
I both agree. I think the NFL this year seems to be they're aiming towards safety, but at the same time, in a different light, it seems like they're being more money hungry. Another thing that's been happening on this off season, off the topic, is they're going straight to streaming.
What do you think about it?
Streaming services. If you want to watch all of the exclusive premium events, you had to spend at least like $800-$600 this year. We're seeing the entire league shift, and it's not even like a smooth shift. It's like either you get on or you get off. I'm not for it. Another thing they did for safeties is the helmet caps, I believe.
Yeah, where players are allowed to voluntarily wear the helmet caps, guardian caps.
Yeah, it's odd. I'm not too sure. It's like they care about players' safety, but yet they're also extending the regular season and they're getting rid of the preseason. So I'm not sure what they're thinking. You know?
No, I mean exactly right. And it's not the only big change. I don't know if you know about the onside kick changes that occurred.
Did not.
No. So when the fourth quarter begins, a trailing team has the opportunity to declare for an onside kick. So you have to declare you want to take the onside kick. That's the end of surprise onside kicks, right? I don't know if you remember the Saints-Colts Super Bowl where there was a surprise onside kick to start the half that was recovered. I believe it was by the Saints, actually.
Yeah.
It's gone, right? It's gone. And I feel like that just takes away so much strategy, so much chances for a team that's down to come back in the game.
You know what it feels like to me? It feels like the NFL is making a lot of blatantly obvious business decisions based on corporate greed, and they're trying to implement these little itty-bitty changes that nobody asked for and say it's in the name of player safety so the players don't feel offended, that they're basically demanding more of the players and really changing the whole game, the structure of the whole game, bit by bit.
That's fair.
Any last talking points?
Nope.
All right, cool. Let's move on to some wrestling. From WWE superstar Ricochet contract is set to expire this summer. Should he resign or become a free agent? Michael, what's your thoughts?
I think here's my thing about Ricochet, and I saw somebody else say this on some online source. I can't remember who it was, but they mentioned that Ricochet is this guy who's extremely gifted athletically, does all this high-flying stuff, but he cannot talk if his life depended on it. And with the WWE sort of being, especially under Triple H, with it being a longer-term story booking and everything story-based and based on psychology and things like that, getting you invested in the stories, I think what Ricochet brings to the table doesn't really fit in with that strategy. So I don't think that letting him go would be a bad decision. I hate to see him go, but I think it would potentially be better for both WWE and wherever he goes next, which will probably be AEW. I think he'd be much happier there, and he'd probably be better utilized there as well.
I agree. Andrew, what's your thoughts?
I perfectly agree with Mike. He couldn't have said it better. He has an immense amount of ring talent, but he struggles to connect with the fans on the mic. And that's a very important part of being in the WWE. AEW is more in tune with allowing people to have matches without a storyline. And to be fair, those matches usually are bangers. Mm-hmm. I think Ricochet would do well in AEW and start building towards being a better face or a heel in order to connect with fans over in WWE. And he could make a return one day. I think Ricochet should allow himself to leave and then go over to AEW.
Yeah.
Or, wherever he ends up, TNA. There's a lot.
That's kind of where I'm at, too. And to reiterate, like, if he were to make a surprising re-sign, sometimes we do see that happen where everybody thinks he hasn't re-signed and then he does. I think the pop, if he were to come back, would be incredible. And I would love to still see him in WWE, but I don't think it's a bad call if he goes somewhere else.
I agree. In my opinion, whether he leaves or stay, I'm thankful for the years that he was able to wrestle in WWE, though I do believe he should have gotten more championships and wins while he was here. Prior to his departure, though, if you guys weren't tracking, Andrade defeated Ricochet to become the new WWE Speed champion. What's our thoughts on WWE Speed?
I don't mind WWE Speed. I love the fast pace of the match. I love the moves. It's hard to fit a great match in 3 minutes. So they usually put on good matches, underselling at points, of course. I'm not liking that Andrade has been attributed down to WWE Speed personally.
Yeah, I have to wonder if that might have been because of Ricochet's departure. But either way, I don't like that either. He just recently returned. I think he's a hell of an athlete. I think he could perfectly fit into a main event scene. So I don't like that they're using him in that way, but I think Speed is a good way to showcase some talent that they don't quite have enough time to showcase. Obviously, that's a X exclusive, formerly known as Twitter. That's where they air Speed, and basically the way they structure it is it takes place, I believe, before or after the main shows, and they record it and put it on X. So I think it's a cool concept. It's a cool way to utilize some speed that doesn't get TV, or some talent that doesn't get TV time. And the title doesn't look terrible. Not a big fan of the colors on the title. I think it's a cool way to sort of showcase some guys that we don't get to see as much, especially the high flyers and the ones that are doing crazy stuff that everybody loves to see. I think it's a cool little thing, and it could grow into something even bigger. It could become the Cruiserweight Division 2.0, I think it's cool. I haven't had a chance to watch any of it, but I'm sure it's very exciting, so I'm all for it.
Yeah. Their matches are pretty good, to Andrew's point. Before we move on, my only complaint is that it's an X exclusive. I think if they branded out farther than just Twitter, now no X, they would have more viewership. YouTube Shorts, maybe. Instagram exclusive. Facebook, maybe. Not too many people go to Twitter now compared to back then, especially now with what's going on currently. But they managed to do a lot within those 3 minutes. I think you would enjoy it very much. So
that's definitely a great point. And even if they weren't to go to short form content with YouTube Shorts, they could compile because again, 3 minute matches. If you have a pre-show match, you could throw 2 of them in there, 6 minutes in total. So you could have a compilation of 2 to 3 matches per upload for YouTube, and you can upload it to Twitter. You could do it on TikTok. You could do whatever you need to. So I do agree with you there to branch out. But that raises the next question: is that a contract stipulation in with X?
Probably. I'm sure they pitched.
I didn't think about that.
To different different outlets.
Yeah.
And that was probably the one that worked out best for them from a business perspective.
I think so.
I mean, I could definitely
100%.
see Elon Musk going to a show one day.
I didn't think about that personally.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on to our next point. Still staying on WWE. Clash of the Castle happened this Saturday, and a lot happened. Honestly, for the past pay-per-views have been pretty predictable. This one, Wow, this one was wild. We start out the show with Cody Rhodes defeating AJ Styles in an I Quit match, and he retained the Universal WWE Championship. How do you feel about that, boys?
What's the championship called? It's the
Undisputed WWE Championship, formerly known as the Universal Championship.
They've only changed the name 500,000 times.
Well, it wasn't technically formula.
I got him.
It wasn't technically known as that, right? Because it's a combined title, so it's a WWE Championship and the Universal Championship.
It's also an ugly ass title.
It is.
That's why it's called the Undisputed.
I love this match. It was great from start almost to finish. I wanted the match to go on longer. I really wanted that match to last longer. I thought it was very creative for an I Quit match. I thought it was a very violent I Quit match. I thought they did everything they could have done. The only thing I would have changed is that it wasn't the opener, because the following two matches after this weren't as hyped. So it didn't build. But that is forgivable because it's AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes, and this was a banger. It wasn't a 5-star, but it was a banger. Now, off podcast, Mike said that he had a hot take for this match. Can't wait to hear it.
The finish was awful.
Oh.
It was terrible.
Why is that?
When I see an I Quit match, especially with guys like AJ and Cody, who have been around for a very long time, they have a lot of history with each other. They had a match with each other, what was that, a couple pay-per-views ago that they had a match?
Yeah.
Yes.
So AJ did that whole...
In France. Lyon.
Yeah. AJ did the whole Mark Henry fake retirement thing, beat up Cody and demanded a title match. I wish there was a longer build-up because there's so much history between those two. I feel like it could have been a really, really, really good feud if they'd have properly built it. And for it to end with Cody simply picking up a set of steel steps and AJ saying he quit after everything that they endured that match, I thought the finish was terrible, and I feel like those two guys together could have done a lot more than what they did in that match. While I think it was a good match, it was fun to watch, I think they could have done a lot more with that whole feud.
No, I mean, I was right there with you. Like I said, I feel like it finished just way too abruptly. And it was very reminiscent. Now, I wouldn't say reminiscent, but it kind of reminded me of when John Cena and Batista had that I Quit match. And Batista
on the ambulance
before he got thrown off of the car. With the attitude adjustment. Cena was about to toss Batista off of a car with the attitude adjustment. Batista quit. Cena did it anyway after the match concluded. I feel like that's what they were going for, but the steel steps, you're right, the steel steps didn't have the same merit. I don't know if Cody and AJ could have pushed the same narrative as Cena Batista could have. The match was great for what it was. The finish was weak. I do agree.
Yeah, I think the
finish. You both said that, because that definitely reminded me more of Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage in recent history.
I thought about that too. I feel like that still had a better finish, to be honest.
At least
Go ahead.
Whoa. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say the lead up to the finish was great. The finish wasn't.
Yeah.
I was gonna say at least Adam Copeland did it when the match was happening. I don't think anyone was expecting Cody to hit AJ after the match. That kind of seemed a little heelish for me.
Oh, I was definitely expecting it. Don't worry.
Yeah, that threw me off.
I was watching it with my son John, right? And I held my thumbs up, right, like they do with the gladiators, you know, to finish him, and then I pointed it down right before Cody threw it. It had the feeling. I knew it was going to happen. I love the tactic AJ used, the sniveling heel, realizing, like, if I get hit by this, I could lose the match. Like, there's no coming back. But again, the stairs doesn't hold the same weight as other finishes and I Quit matches. I don't know how much to dock it. I still think this was a great match. I would put it at a 4.5. The finish is the worst part of this match.
Yeah, I will say it felt like the whole pay-per-view was kind of geared toward that local crowd in the UK, which is fine. They make most of their money from ticket sales, so that's fine. But I feel like that whole title match just wasn't the focus of this premium live event.
Of course it wasn't. That's why it was the opener.
Which is crazy. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's going to lead to a lot of people criticizing Cody's run a lot more. What's supposed to be the main title.
Yeah, but Drew McIntyre was the focal point. It's not even Damian Priest who was the focal point. Drew McIntyre is a big draw to this crowd. And, us at home, we're more inclined to cheer for Cody Rhodes. But WWE is putting shows on for people at that stadium. And it's always the people at home always come second when it comes to these type of shows. So, while... Again, I wouldn't have had this match as a main event. I wouldn't have had it as the opener either.
Mm-hmm. I would put it second to last.
Second to last? Yeah. That's fair. All right. Second match of the night, we had Hot Topic defeat BLM and Bellator to become the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. What you guys thoughts on that?
This match was a little hard to get through. There was a couple botches, but I don't think the botches had anything to do with the match quality, especially seeing as how many botches happened later on in this pay-per-view.
To that
premium live event. I liked the Baszler and Zoe Stark coming together with Alba Fire and Isla Dawn to overcome this very strong tag team. Because I think I mentioned this on the podcast. Who could beat this tag team? When they won the titles, who could beat them?
Right.
Well, apparently 4 people can beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think this match was bad at all. The one big botch that Jade had that has everybody talking about how she needs more time to develop, I think that was kind of hard to watch. But I think she's also young, and I think she'll be fine. I don't hate her for it. I don't think any less of her. I think that's why they put her in a tag team early on. But I think her and Bianca, I thought, worked really well together. They had good chemistry. They had some cool moves. Then you got Shayna and Zoe Stark. I don't really care about that tag team at all.
I love Zoe Stark.
She's a good wrestler.
She's definitely better than Shayna. Shayna is she's very boring in my opinion. And then you got Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. And that's a tag team I've been watching for a long time. And I gotta be honest, I didn't expect them to win. I didn't expect that upset at all. I thought that was really cool. That was really cool that they put them over. And I'm going to give you guys some information that I don't think you guys knew about. I'm not sure if either of you knew about the tragedy that Isla Dawn had. Just about a week before the show, she was on vacation in Florida with her parents. Both of her parents were hit by a car crossing the road, and her mother did not survive. So I thought it was really cool that they went over there to her home country and they ended up winning the titles. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. I didn't know about that.
Wow.
And that is a great tragedy and loss. I almost said feel good story, but it's not.
It's not at all.
It's really not.
Feel terrible story.
I did mention that I was glad they got the win in front of their home crowd, but and that was Alba Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Alba Fire. I heard him mention a tragedy after she won, so I researched it and I found that out. It's just a crazy freak accident. You hate to see stuff like that happen.
What happens when you actually do your homework, unlike me, I guess. Shit.
Same here. No, thank you for bringing that up, though, Mike. I did not know that at all.
It kind of blew my mind.
My favorite women's wrestler. Yeah.
Yeah, but aside from that,
but also you misspelled fire in your notes.
I did. I didn't bother correcting it. But yeah, aside from that, I have been following them for a while since they were down in NXT. They're both very good too. So aside from that story, I think in ring they're also really good, and I'm excited to see what they do with the titles.
Yeah, I'm glad they're getting their proper push. And we did not have Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair losing it so sudden. I mean, this was their third defense, but for them to lose it in that fashion, I couldn't see it any other way. So well deserved.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah. I definitely love the narrative and storyline they're pushing with both tag teams having to team up against the champions. That was great. And it's the only way I could have pictured them losing it was in that way exactly, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next, third match, we had Sami Zayn defeating Chad Gable to retain the Intercontinental Championship. Andrew, what's your thoughts on this?
This was my favorite match on the card.
Really?
I'm not saying it was the best match, but it was absolutely my favorite match. And, you know, I've said this multiple times. I'm a big Sami Zayn fan. I still think Chad Gable should have walked away with a victory here. Alternatively, Chad Gable's going to get one more shot. And I know this. The build and the emotion in this match was strong. Sami Zayn continues to show that he can build an emotional match, but so did Chad Gable, Otis, and Maxine Dupree. Sami Zayn nearly killed Chad Gable.
Yeah.
And that again is this continuation of these botches that happened during this match. It makes me think something might have been wrong with the ring gear. Something might have been wrong. There was a lot of slips throughout the match. You saw that in the Jade Cargill match where she slipped.
It could also be travel related. I mean, the last two PLEs have been overseas, and they got that crazy schedule. They're constantly on the road anyway. So
yeah, I remember when I traveled back from Korea, I was absolutely gone.
Yeah, I can't imagine how freaking exhausted those people are.
Again, there was so many botches throughout this pay-per-view. I don't know what to blame it on. I don't know whose fault it was, but Sami Zayn nearly killed Chad Gable, dropped him on his head.
Yeah, I actually missed that part of the match, but that's pretty wild. Sami Zayn rarely has moments like that.
And especially on Chad Gable. I mean, I've seen Sami Zayn pull that move on somebody bigger than Chad. I believe it was like wasn't it an exploder suplex? And Chad Gable landed on his face.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a solid match. I didn't catch that botch, but that's pretty scary. But aside from that, I felt it went about how I expected it to. They had that ringside incident where Maxine came out with a boot on her leg. She had an injured leg, and Chad incidentally falls on that leg and hurts her even more. Obviously, she's a part of that stable with Otis. They're both with Chad. He's kind of playing that evil coach role lately. And that causes Otis to seemingly turn on Chad, but maybe not fully quite yet. He carries Maxine backstage and leaves Chad in the ring, and that sets up the finish for Sami. Chad was visibly seething in the ring afterwards, which I think, to Andrew's point, could lead to more in that story, which is cool. I'd like to see Chad eventually win that title. I love what they're doing with them. I think Chad and Maxine and Otis are doing a really good job in that whole story. And I think Sami's the perfect good guy to put him up against. So I'm excited to see what's next for that.
I have a sort of a prediction. I think me and Saquon were talking about this during the PLE. I think this match is going to go to SummerSlam. And it's gonna
Absolutely.
Yeah, Sami versus Gable in SummerSlam. And that's when the Creed brothers are going to come out in Chad Gable's corner.
That's a solid prediction. I would love to see that.
To back off that, I thoroughly love what they're doing with the Alpha Academy. Hopefully it does lead to the Creed brothers at SummerSlam in some form or fashion. It's been a while since we've last seen them. I can't even recall when the last time I saw them on screen. Chad's going to win the title. He has to. They've been building it up before even WrestleMania. So it's just all a matter of time. And when he does, it's going to be a great reign, I think. Next match, we have Bayley, surprisingly for me, defeating Piper Niven to retain the WWE Women's Championship. What's your thoughts on this, Mike?
I thought that was a really good match, too. I went into it not a huge fan of either woman. I'm not really the biggest Bayley fan. I kind of find her moveset a little boring for my taste. Piper, we don't see too much of her. I think she actually kind of surprised me. She had a very solid match, I feel, aside from the moment where she dropped Bayley right on her head on a scoop slam. But aside from that, I think both women kind of surprised me, and they put on a really good title match. Ended about how I expected it to. Of course, Chelsea Green had her share of interference, being partnered with Piper Niven. I think Piper put on a really strong showing in front of her home crowd, so that was cool to see. Obviously, Bayley still walks out the champion.
I, for one, definitely wanted to see more Chelsea Green. I feel like they pulled Chelsea Green out way too early in that match. And her antics could have added more to that match. It was a good match. I feel like the fans weren't behind it They really didn't get behind Piper Niven. They really didn't get behind Bayley. Kind of an indifferent crowd. But I wasn't ever really expecting Piper Niven to walk out of this match with a victory. They have been setting up Bayley versus Nia Jax since before Nia Jax even won Queen of the Ring. And she's guaranteed a title shot at whoever holds the WWE Women's Championship, which looks like it's going to be Bayley. So I wasn't surprised with this outcome. The match was pretty good. The fans weren't behind it as much as they should have been, given that Piper Niven is from Scotland. So I don't know what to say, but it was a good match. It was a good match. Needs more Chelsea.
Don't know. Yeah, I was surprised they pulled her out early. For those that don't know, Piper Niven was a former WWE UK champion and a previous tag team champion with Chelsea Green. So it was good seeing her back in her home town. I did think it was going to be more of a nail biter. It did make me laugh seeing Chelsea come back with the Rey Mysterio mask.
That was great.
I thought there was going to be a little bit more antics, maybe a little ref bump or something, but it was good seeing Bayley retain. Hopefully the match at SummerSlam against Nia Jax is a banger. The past two SummerSlam PLEs have been great. The last match for the night, speaking of antics, speaking of botches, Damian Priest defeated Drew McIntyre to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Andy, what is your thoughts on this? I'm really interested to hear.
First of all, wow, what a great match. That scary botch aside, the match was fantastic. It had the drama, the technical wrestling, the surprise twist. I mean, we all knew that CM Punk was going to make a showing at this PLE, but to bring him in as a ref and to film it as a way that to cinematically reveal that this is CM Punk was great. I think they definitely made every competitor in this match look great, even post botch to Damian, who was able to fight through his pain, whatever he was feeling. I mean, it looked absolutely tragic. I mean, that could have been a torn ACL, a torn Achilles, a broken foot, possibly some head damage.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a scary botch, but that botch aside, this was a phenomenal match. The best match on the card. Not my favorite, but the best match, obviously.
Yeah, I thought it was a great match, too. That botch was very scary. I don't think I've ever seen somebody's foot get caught in the ropes unintentionally like that. But they played it off really well, and I think that kind of added to the match in a certain way. I thought that the finish, where there was that ref bump, and then they had CM Punk come out in the ref shirt, and they didn't show CM Punk's face until he was holding up the 2. He did a deliberate slow count for Drew after he hit his finish. And they didn't show his face until after Drew started looking at him. I thought that was brilliant. I thought the fact that they didn't fully reveal him until he held up that slow 2 count. I thought that was really cool, and I popped for that pretty hard. I thought it was a cool way to do it. Perfectly executed. And I think it's a great way to continue that feud between Drew and CM Punk. And, yeah, I thought that finish was really cool, and I thought the match was a great back-and-forth battle, and I think it sort of, despite that botch, kind of elevates Damian's reign a little bit. So, yeah, I thought it was a good match, solid main event, and I enjoyed it.
With that, what would you guys rate the entire show? Andy, you start first.
I mean, I would have gave this a good, 8.5 out of 10. I would like to see more of a build to future storylines with a lot of these, like maybe have Nia Jax come out to try to cause Bayley the match. She had to overcome that. I don't know. Maybe build something on the women's tag team division. I think this was also mentioned off podcast, how the women's tag team division hasn't been built properly, and I can see where that is coming from. But overall, it was a great match. The crowd was great. And I mean, it was a great showing. The crowd was great. Not much to say, but Triple H is continuing to put on bangers and working with what he's got.
Yeah, consistently very good. I would probably give it 8 out of 10. I'll let the botches slide. I'm not really worried about that. But I do feel like, again, it was kind of focused around pleasing the UK crowd. I don't think, aside from the Sami Zayn match, I don't think really any of these are going to result in like I don't feel like anything got added to any long-term stories aside from the CM Punk bit. So I don't think it was a very important PLE, but they were still solid matches all the way around. So I give it an 8 out of 10.
For Proceed, I think I gave it an 8.7. So I can do without the antics. I can do without the botches. But there's one thing that I need from PLE. Where was the pyro?
That's true.
Where was the fireworks?
Weird without pyro.
Yeah,
where was the fireworks?
That's fair.
The only
mine down to a 2 out of 10. No, I'm kidding.
The only pyro we had the entire night was Cody Smoke, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Very
Like
weird.
hearing him
Jake
whoa.
Smoke too, right?
Oh yeah, yep.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I guess they
Very
were allowed
weird.
to use smoke machines, but not fireworks. And maybe that was a venue thing, like Andrew said off podcast. Some venues don't allow that type of thing. But God, it was
Perhaps.
weird without Cody's entrance without pyro. Just does not hit the same.
No,
Seeing Cody's entrance was like seeing the behind the scenes for the 2K cover.
You know, and I just thought about this, right? And this just popped in my head. So if we go back to the Damian Priest-Drew McIntyre match real quick.
Good.
I actually thought for a little bit that Drew McIntyre might win this match. And then it occurred to me, they're setting up CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. And Gunther is guaranteed a title shot against whoever holds the World Heavyweight title at SummerSlam, so it can't be Drew.
That's a good point.
I'm thankful that you guys mentioned that because I remember we had a discussion leading up to King and Queens of the Ring. Like, they need to make that role mean something. So I completely forgot that they had a number one contendership for it. So it will make perfect sense for Drew not to win. I had him winning just due to the fact that this is Drew's second time in Scotland, I believe, because the last one was in Scotland. And he main evented, fought for the championship. So I was like, okay, there's no way he's going to lose twice, right? But story building wise, that makes perfect sense, Andrew. So your point is correct.
I had him winning too, don't you worry.
I
All the way up until the match occurred, I told that to Charlotte because we were sitting together.
Really?
And I was just like, I feel stupid because I picked him before this started.
I feel stupid for not predicting Punk coming out. Because me being me, I was thinking like, okay, cool. Like, Judgment Day, not ringside, but of course they're going to pop up through the crowd or under the ring. So when I see a ref coming out, I'm like, oh, shoot, the ref's out. Wait, he's wearing Jordan Lows.
He was wearing Jordan.
Something's not right. Okay, why'd he stop? Turn. Oh, it's Phil. Okay, yeah,
It worked
that makes
out that he
sense.
had slick back hair, though, because he kind of looked like one of
Yeah.
the refs.
Yeah, I 100% saw him running down. I was like, oh my God, Drew's going to do this, dude.
Yeah, I'm
And then
glad
like,
how
wait
they
a second.
executed that.
And then after it was a reveal, refs don't run that fast, dude.
I didn't even.
about
I
to say
felt
that.
slow. It didn't register to me that it was CM Punk until it literally showed his face. I was like, "Why is he holding up a 2 like that?"
Right. I haven't seen a ref run that fast since Mania when it was Taker versus Shawn. I think it was what was the name? Roberts? Scott? Something like, dog. Math wasn't mathing at all. All right. With the conclusion of Clash at the Castle, Money in the Bank is right around the corner, boys. I believe it's next month before SummerSlam. So what's our prediction for the men's Money in the Bank winner?
So I believe, real quick, it is July 8th, right?
I know it's in
I
July.
think so.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it's July 8th or 9th, and that's going to be in Toronto, Canada. So before, because I've selected 3 picks, and before I tell you who any of my picks are, I wanted to tell you who my first pick was. And I changed it today. Actually, technically I changed it last night, but I decided who it was going to be today. I thought Sami Zayn was going to drop the title to Chad and then go on to win the Money in the Bank. Obviously, I don't think Sami Zayn's going to be in the match because he's still carrying the Intercontinental Championship. There's still time to change that, but right now I selected Jey Uso as the front runner for the male Money in the Bank winner, and I have a lot of reasons why, but does anyone else have Jey Uso before I get into my reasons?
I had him as a potential winner, being probably the most over guy right now. But I'll get into my thoughts a little bit after you continue to finish up yours.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily have him on my list, but I do have him as someone that needs to have a single titles run.
That's fair. When I started drafting this list, I was actually focusing on people from Monday Night Raw because I think that they're going to try to avoid any potential that Cody could lose his title right now. They want to build that title for The Rock. They want to build that title for Roman's return. I don't think Cody's going to come close to losing that title until WrestleMania. So I wanted to pick someone from Raw. Jey Uso is honestly the biggest babyface on Raw right now. So I selected him, and then my second is Braun Breaker.
Yeah, I had Braun Breaker as my second as well. And back to Jey Uso real quick. I think, again, like you said, him being the biggest babyface, he's also the only one that's declared entrance at the time of that we're recording this. So we don't know all the entrants yet.
I forgot that.
But yeah, with him being the biggest babyface, I think that's a solid bet. And just like you, I had Braun Breaker, who recently we saw take out Ricochet, seemingly on his way out. We talked about that earlier. He's been on a tear since he got to the main roster. It's exciting to see somebody who was successful in NXT actually come onto the main roster and have a lot of success right away. I think he's really, really good in that role that he's playing. I think he's extremely gifted, obviously coming from that lineage of the Steiners. So, it's everything he's done has been exciting. It's a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, for us, it's fun to cheer the bad guys. I think right now it's easy for anybody with a set of eyes to say he's arguably the strongest candidate to win that Money in the Bank briefcase, especially with those frustrations he had not being in the King of the Ring tournament.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's a pretty good idea. Who do you got, Saquon?
So I only had one pick and one pick only. Might be controversial. Take it as it is. Bronson Reed.
Bronson Reed. That's interesting. Now, why do you have Bronson?
I thoroughly believe that the WWE has put Bronson Reed in the position to be a future IC champion.
That's a solid take. I could see that.
Do you think he's going to get it? He's going to get the Intercontinental Championship through the Money in the Bank?
I think he's going to get it after Chad wins. I don't see him, of course, cashing in at SummerSlam. If he does, that'd be crazy. I can see it happen because they've already done a triple threat match on the previous pay-per-views, PLEs. Apologies. Yeah, he's proven himself on the main roster since transitioning. I don't see him necessarily as a main card champion, mainly as the IC champion, because that's kind of the role they put him in. I'm not sure when, but I don't know.
With you right now, I think one day he's going to hold the Intercontinental Championship. I don't think his pathway through Money in the Bank. I don't ever want to see Money in the Bank cashed in on a mid-card title again.
That's fair.
Personally.
The last time I saw was Austin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was what?
Yeah.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Was it 2 years ago?
Seth Rollins?
Oh my gosh. Wow, yeah, it was. Yeah.
They definitely should be reserved for main titles, but also there's a lot of long-term storybooking going on with the main titles, so I could definitely see that happening, to Saquon's point. Some other notes I had, though, I had a question about whether LA Knight could potentially have his wrongs from last year righted, but then I was thinking about how he's in that feud with Logan for the U.S. title, and I think he's probably going to end up winning that either at the next premium live event, or at SummerSlam. I think he's finally going to win a title. So I don't really see that happening. I thought another interesting one could be Kevin Owens. We haven't seen him in the title picture in a long time. That'd be a good way to reinsert him. Could also be Randy Orton. There could be a heel turn between Kevin and Randy. I think that could be interesting. Either one of those guys could.
I got something to share about that.
either one of those guys could be have a cool reinsertion into the title picture, especially with Randy Orton being up there in title reigns and kind of towards the end of his career. I think I had Gunther as an interesting one, but then Andrew just reminded me that he has a title shot as the King of the Ring winner. So I'd probably take that out, though it could be interesting to see him as a Mr. Money in the Bank at some point. My pick, though, who I would like to see win and who I think is pretty likely. I think with it having been a few months since CM Punk got hurt, and they originally said he was going to be out for a few months, didn't give an exact time frame, I think there's a chance he could come back for Money in the Bank. And I think that if he were to win that, that could be a really cool way for him to continue feuding centered around that heavyweight title with eventually, I'm sure Drew will work its way back into that picture with CM Punk being in the picture. I think CM Punk could, if he wins that, could cash in on Damian. I think people would love that. I think that's a good way to continue the feud with Drew. And then I think when CM Punk gets through that, he could have a cool feud with Seth that we've been waiting for whenever Seth comes back. So I think my pick would be CM Punk.
You know, I never really considered CM Punk, mostly because he's entwined with the feud right now. He's already had a Money in the Bank reign, and he's already an established superstar. Punk has a title shot whenever he wants a title shot.
Yeah, from a business perspective, but not from a storyline perspective.
But I can't see. I don't even know if he's cleared to wrestle yet, with the pay-per-view only being, well, now less than a month away. It would be doubtful for me for Punk. Kevin Owens is an interesting one I had on my list, but then something just occurred to me. It looks like Kevin Owens' hands are going to be tied because they're setting up Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton. Money in the Bank is what I'm thinking. A triple threat match against the Bloodline. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga.
Yeah, that could be interesting too.
Which I think Randy Orton is going to turn on Cody then to set up Cody versus Randy at SummerSlam.
I'd love that. That'd be a good way to do it.
Which would be a great match. But I never really considered CM Punk. I'm not sold on CM Punk. I like Bronson Reed. I just don't think, again, I don't want to see a title cashed in on a mid-card title. I mean, Money in the Bank cashed in on a mid-card title. Those are interesting.
Valid predictions. There was some videos circulating around of Randy a bit eyeing on Cody's championship.
Yep.
So I suppose we'll see what happens within the next couple months. Moving on to the women's Money in the Bank winner predictions. Who do you have, Michael?
I got Tiffany Stratton. For me, she's the only logical winner. She's red hot right now. Arguably one of the best in terms of... Yes, she is. Arguably one of the best in terms of in-ring ability. She had a strong run in NXT, and also since debuting, she's kind of up there with Braun Breaker in terms of how successful she's been. Pretty much instantly got inserted into the main card picture. I think her winning the briefcase could potentially push her toward a babyface run because she's super over right now. Again, I think she's really, really good in the ring, and I'd like to see her win it. I think for me, she's the only one that I could see logically winning the briefcase.
I mean, I was right there. Tiffany Stratton is my top choice as well. She definitely has the looks, the in-ring ability, the promo skills. It'd be a great heel run, and I hope they actually carry out a nice female heel run for the Money in the Bank. I think the longest reigning female Money in the Bank cash-in was SummerSlam. I could be wrong. I'd love to be corrected. But Tiffany Stratton is a great choice. My other two, I'm not completely sold on these, but Chelsea Green would be a great heel to carry the Money in the Bank briefcase. And if you want a good face to carry it, I had Naomi. For obvious reasons, she came in, immediately got inserted in the title picture, lost to Bayley, lost again to Bayley, dropped to Tiffany Stratton her first match back. It would be great to see her actually win a championship. And I think a good pathway for Naomi would be through the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Absolutely. Where Michael had CM Punk, I decided to add Alexa Bliss. Why? No idea.
No, dude,
No idea.
I'm not going to lie to you. I spent about half an hour considering any possibility that Alexa Bliss could be back in time for the Money in the Bank, and that was who I selected too. So I like where you're at, and I took her off my list because I just couldn't figure out if she could be back in time.
They rumored something on SmackDown. It was either SmackDown or Raw that they're going to be coming within the next couple weeks we'll see what that entails. If I'm right, that would be pretty interesting if she does make an appearance for the Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I'm excited to see whenever she does return.
Yeah, it's been over a year and a half, close to 2 years since she last made an appearance because she was on baby leave. So I think that'd be one way for her to come back. All right. Any last comments? Any more predictions?
I think that's all I got.
Who did you, oh yeah, you had Alexa Bliss, that's right. Besides us wanting to talk about our briefly about our MCW trip.
Oh yeah. We did make a trip over to Joppatown recently, Joppatown, Maryland, where MCW, Maryland Championship Wrestling, resides. That is one of the largest independent wrestling companies, promotions on the East Coast. So it was really cool to finally see it in person. Me and Andrew and his wife Charlotte went together. That was a great time. I feel like we got our money's worth with all the matches that they had. There was a lot more matches than I thought there was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole theme of that show, what was it called? Breakthrough, I think?
Yes.
So they were kind of debuting a lot of new characters. And there were some hometown heroes there as well that obviously me and Andrew had no idea who the hell they were. But it was cool. It was a lot of fun. It was cool being up close and getting to hear them talk all the trash to the crowd and stuff. Yeah, it was a fun time. We'd definitely like to go back sometime. Andrew had a wild time at that show.
Yeah. So I was trying to really get the crowd riled up for this show. And again, like the way it was structured is only three rows of seats. So pretty much the crowd is fully involved, right? The wrestlers can hear you, you can hear the wrestlers. So I had a lot of fun heckling people. I don't think there was really a bad performance throughout that whole show. I've been to one WWE, I think it was Raw. Mm-hmm. And then I know you've been to Raw and AEW, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so this was my first fully independent wrestling show, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would have. I enjoyed the heels. I think a really standout heel was Kingsley.
Yeah.
Listen, I went into the show fully trying to support all the heels in this, but his character work was so good, he made me hate him. And I had a lot of fun heckling him. I thought his character work was great. I thought his performance was great. And despite everything I was yelling out, I really enjoyed his character. And I got to watching and actually fell in love with the work of Mako and the Mako Dojo. They just recently had a show happen where they had Mickie James was there. Mm-hmm. A couple, she's a former WWE legend. I mean, I wouldn't say former legend. She is a legend. That was a fantastic showing they had there. They do so much great work, and it's good to go out and support your independent promotions.
Yeah, it's really cool because you never know, we could be watching, I talked to Andrew about this when we went, we could be watching the debut of somebody who could be the next Roman Reigns or the next Cody Rhodes or anything like that. So it's really cool seeing them early on in their career like that.
Yeah.
I remember going to a show 4 years ago with my little brother, and one of the wrestlers actually tag team, I believe he's on TNA right now. Great showing, little mini production that's going on in Bel Air. They put on a great show. They do it quite frequently. I wouldn't mind going back whenever I can.
Yeah, it's a cool time supporting local up.
Yeah. For the next announcement, for anyone that's interested in what's going on in the NBA, the Celtics are currently up 3-1 in the series, but they lost their previous game 122-84. Did any of you guys catch the game?
I did. Did you catch any of it, Andrew?
I did not.
Yeah, I was able to catch the second half. Man, oof. I don't know what defensive adjustments they made from the first two games in that series to that one, but their defense was on point that game, and I feel like that was where they struggled the most in the series against the Celtics. But man, they had some close losses, and then they blew them out 122-84. I think they said that's the fourth biggest lead win in finals history or something like that. Some crazy stat line like that. So yeah, the Mavericks performed really well. I thought it was going to be a sweep, I'm going to be honest with you.
That's what I called for. I called for that sweep last podcast, remember?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
really?
I said clean sweep, and I'm a little upset it wasn't. It was almost a sweep, so I'll take my credit where it's due, but also I got it wrong.
Yeah, Celtics were my pick, but I'm kind of low-key rooting for the Mavericks. I love watching Luka play, although his defensive ability has kind of been exposed a little bit. But this past game, they locked down the Celtics, so they do have to go back to Boston now, which is going to be brutal for them, being down 3-1, especially with I don't know if you catch how hard they boo that man Kyrie in Boston.
I saw.
Wild. It's pretty brutal.
I heard. Well, if Dallas does come back, this will be the first time in NBA history that team has come back from a 0-3 deficit. The closest we saw was Cavs and Golden State 2017, 2016, I want to say, around that time. I can't recall. I didn't have them sweeping, but I have them at least winning in 6. So we'll see. Only thing that's holding Dallas back is just consistency. If they do what they did last game, they'll be just fine.
Oh yeah, they showed
fine.
up last game.
Yeah. All right, for our final and last announcement before we end the show, for the first time in nearly 3 years, I'll be making my return back to the East Coast. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
My thought on that is I'm excited. This is new information to me.
You know, I didn't like the trade composition of that package, all right? Because, yeah, we get Saquon, but what are they getting in return? Oh, okay, I'll tell you what they're getting, all right? They're getting $4,000 and a bag of potato chips. That is too much to give up for a guy like Saquon. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I'm excited for you to come back.
Absolutely. For those that do not know, I am in the military. Andrew is prior military. I've been overseas for the past 3.5 years, currently stateside. I'll be back in the East Coast near the end of this month to mid of next month. So hopefully we can see what goes on. I'm looking forward to see what the podcast will be looking like. Potentially go to an Orioles game. Maybe go to a wrestling event, but we will see.
We should try to do something for sure.
Yeah. But this wraps up the show.
I play football, but I nearly broke my ankle the other week playing football.
Well, the last thing we need is someone trying to arrest me again, like last time. But yeah, we plenty of time. We'll figure it out. Any more comments, questions, concerns before we end this?
Just we're gonna drop our link to our Instagram. Because we made an Instagram.
Yeah, shout out to Saquon. Finally, we got our Instagram set up.
Absolutely, yes. We have a socials at Free State Podcasts, I believe, Free State Sports. It'll be in the link in the description. If you have any ideas of what we should include, please feel free to leave it in there. If you liked what you hear, also, leave something down in the comments below. This has been Saquon for Free State Sports Podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.